What's your favorite crypto to trade?
Yeah, all of them. I like this WorldCoin one. It's fantastic.
Ooh, I can't wait to scan my eyeballs.
It's gonna be harder. It's gonna be harder.
What is up, guys? Welcome back to Bitcoin Audible. I am Guy Swan, the guy who has read more about Bitcoin than anybody else you know, and we have Pablof7z on the show today. You probably know Pablo from Nostr building fame, the Nostr Necromancer, and he is building so many different things that are all actually related. And I have just been eager to get him on the show for a while. We've kind of had a loose conversation for, I don't know, maybe a month or so now, to get together and have this conversation. And man, it was worth it. We went for 2, 3, I don't even know, really long time. We had a very long conversation because we had a lot to unpack and I had a lot to catch up on. So I will try to have as many relevant links in the show notes as possible. But I don't want to waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and get into this conversation with Pablo.
This show is brought to you by Nodeless.io, the simplest way to integrate with Bitcoin and Lightning online, whether for a website, a charity, a fundraiser, or an online store. Receive payments directly with no hassle and no KYC. Check out Nodeless.io/guy. This show is also brought to you by Fold, the debit card that pays you sats when you spend fiat. Sats back on everything that you do. Plus daily spins with free sats, gift cards with even bigger rewards, and buying sats directly in the app without a fee. 50,000 sats are up for grabs at bitcoinaudible.com/fold. And lastly, when you receive sats back on everything with Fold and payments using Nodeless, you will want to send it safely to your cold card hardware wallet. My Bitcoin keys are precious, and that is why I use a cold card. It has an open build and firmware. They have an extremely long-standing reputation in the Bitcoin space. They are a dedicated Bitcoin-only wallet to keep your keys safe from hackers. You want to sleep like a baby knowing that your keys are safe? Get a cold card. It's that simple. 9% off with code BitcoinAudible, all one word. The links will be in the show notes. With that, let's get into today's chat with Pablof7z.
Dude, what is up, Pablo? Welcome to Bitcoin Audible. Long overdue. I'm glad we finally got this set up. Good to have you on, man.
Super psyched to be here, man. I've been listening to you and falling asleep to your voice for years, so it's kind of weird. No, I'm just saying that you're boring. That's
Yeah, I get that a lot.
Usually happens while I'm
son. I put my son to sleep a lot. Like, I can see the effect. Oh, shit.
No, super stoked to be here, man.
Yeah, man. Good to have you. So I've been following. Actually, it's really hard to follow all the shit you're working on because you're working on a lot of stuff. But I have been attached to your profile, trying to keep up with the things that you've been putting out. And I feel like I haven't even gotten to utilize any of them. Like, I've only barely touched them. It's just like, I don't know. I need to take the time. I need to figure out how to start integrating some of these things, but it seems like a lot of them are beginning to exist. But how about before we really get into the weeds, for anybody who doesn't know who Pablo is, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been a developer pretty much my whole life. I started with open source like FOSS when I was 11. I think it was the first open source software I released.
Oh, shit.
It was an email client because I switched to Linux when I was a kid. And the only email client that was kind of decent was Netscape Communicator, which was horrible. So I learned a book. I read a book on C. I was like, I wonder if I can code an email client in C. And I was okay. I'm pretty sure that I'm going to fail, but I wonder why. So yeah, that was the first free and open source software that I released, and I learned a lot with that. And yeah, I've been involved with Bitcoin for I don't know, like 6 years or so, mainly as a developer. And then I started looking into Nostr last year. I really jumped into it around like November. I had surgery in November, so I was working at Swan Bitcoin as head of R&D, and I had surgery, so I had some downtime, and I read more on Nostr, and that's when I really got into it, and I started just writing code immediately, and then something clicked. I think the interoperability between use cases absolutely outstunned me. This idea that you can be using a social client, like a Twitter style client, and then I can write. Because I wrote, one of the first things that I wrote was this Nostr project, which was sort of like a very, very lame attempt at classified advertisement, sort of like Craigslist. But the idea was cool because I realized that I could create, like someone could come into the site, create a post for whatever, like, share a room, an Airbnb style or something like that. And someone could reply to that as a kind one, and that would show up on someone on that person's followers feed. And this idea that the use case start leaking into each other, that was, this is cool. This is very powerful. And yeah, ever since, Nostr pretty much captured my attention, my time, my energy, my imagination. And I've been writing many different things, mainly because I think that's the right way to discover what the nature of something. Just play with it.
Just play.
Just play.
Right.
That with Bitcoin, I did the same thing. When I started with Bitcoin, I wrote like this really shitty multi-sig wallet based on Electrum. Like I was following how Electrum did it, and that's what really clicked. I read Human Action in 2006, but the idea of
that's back then.
Way before Bitcoin. But
that was way before. That was did 2016? How old were you in? Oh, wait. 2016.
2006. I'm 40 years old.
How old were you?
I'm 39.
That's not that much older than you're. So how old were you in 2006? You read fucking Human Action?
Yeah. I was 22 years old.
Okay. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense. That's when I went down that rabbit hole.
It
seems
sense.
young.
It's the right
it seems
age,
like so long ago.
We're so fucking old, dude. But I never connected Bitcoin with the Austrian economics. Those were like two separate things. They didn't really. Bitcoin was like this technology that was cool, like the programming aspect.
It's internet.
Very
internet points. It's
internet points. Like whatever, right? Man. You know?
This is built by the Bitcoin guy, right?
But yeah, the idea of Bitcoin as money itself, that took way longer. Like I was programming wallets and shit like that, but just for fun. But no, that's this is money.
Yeah. Well, dude, are you doing this full time right now? Like, do you have a?
Yeah. No,
How
I
are you doing
quit.
this full
So
time?
I don't know, man. So basically, I was working at Swan. So I was working at Swan, and then, around March, I started flirting with the idea that I cannot keep this up because I have a family, I have a full-time job, and I have this Nostr thing that is like leeching. It's just absorbing all of my energy. So I realized that I had to quit something. To me, I've realized that a lot of people, especially after Nostrica, I've realized that a lot of people come to Bitcoin because of Nostr. They've heard of, because the thing is that Bitcoin is this investable asset. Dude,
So hold on a second. How big is that funnel, do you think? Like for Nostr Rica, what do you say the percentage of people who were there specifically because of Nostr and Bitcoin was second in line versus Bitcoin to Nostr? I mean, give me a percentage. Give me a detailed statistic.
Yeah. I mean, it's around 8.93%. No, so
okay, 8.93.
No,
1% margin of error.
probably for the most part is people that went into Bitcoin first and then Nostr. But there was a lot of people that went in the other direction.
A surprising number to have gone the other way.
Surprising number. That's right. And the thing is, I think Bitcoin has this issue with, I mean, it has been financialized by all the shitcoiners, right? Where it's this asset that you invest in, right? And you make money out of. When people see, like ask me just randomly, what do I do? And I mentioned that I'm Bitcoiner and all these things. They always go directly into, oh, and how do you make money with Bitcoin? It's like immediately, right? And I
What's
think
what's your favorite crypto to trade?
all of them. I like this WorldCoin one is fantastic.
Ooh, I can't wait to scan my eyeballs.
It's gonna be harder. It's gonna be harder. But to me, through Nostr is like this very organic, because there are many things that have these points. Like Reddit has points, and Duolingo has points. Like there are many cases where this thing had points, and
Credit
people are
tokens
used to
everywhere,
that.
man.
Credit tokens are everywhere, right? Whereas in Nostr, they come and they experience the same thing of the points, and then they realize, wait, this is Bitcoin? What? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, what? Why are people sending me money? This is weird. So I think, and also I think it's much
They
easier.
were zaps. Where's Bitcoin? I don't understand. I've got 10,000 zaps.
I think the barrier to entry to Bitcoin is much larger, because first you need to understand Bitcoin, right? Because the first step of like the first action you take is buying Bitcoin, right? Which implies that you usually, I mean, 99% of the time, you need to KYC, you need to dispose of this thing that you've worked for, right? So the ask of adopting Bitcoin, even $100 or $5, whatever it might be, is really fucking large. Whereas try Nostr, it takes nothing, right? It's like a minute to get set up. It's a very low barrier to entry. But I think the flow from purple pilling, from trying Nostr to trying Bitcoin, understanding Bitcoin, it's so well set up, right? So yeah, I mean, my thesis, that the reason why I quit Swan is I want to have the largest impact in orange pilling the world, and I think my work on Nostr will be much more. I mean, that's the same thing you're doing, right? You are working towards helping people understand what Bitcoin is, right? And yeah, I think just the return on investment of investing my energy and my time in Nostr is just greater than what I could do in any other venue. So yeah, and how do I?
Well, I
do
need
it?
to up my zaps to you, I think. To make sure I keep the train running.
And yeah, how do I do it? I just, I can live for a long time from savings. I don't expect to have any revenue myself, or I mean, significant revenue. I do get subs, which is nice. And obviously it's not enough to cover anything other than, it's cool to see them and it's fantastic. I don't think anyone is able to, like, the Nostr economy has a GDP of what, like maybe one Bitcoin for the entire economy.
It's at least 3. At least 3.
You are right.
Minimum.
I stand corrected.
We got 1 million zaps. That's probably 3 sats a piece, right?
Yes.
Average.
I mean, we just need to, couple of orders.
Oh, that's 0.03
we're there.
Bitcoin. Oh, shucks. Oh, shit. Okay, so I have been... Probably one of the craziest things about where we are right now is that I feel like so many things are here now. Still young, but so many things are here. You know how we've, maybe 5 years ago, you can think about how much we talked about how Bitcoin was going to change the architecture of the internet. Is that it was going to change how we thought about security, how we thought about identity. And I feel like we're seeing that. Like I'm specifically, I don't want to go to this yet, but I'm specifically building something with a developer friend who on the Hole Punch network, and I'm sure you know about Keat. I really think there's a really undervalued relationship that
I agree.
Like there needs to be bridges there, and I want to actually pick your brain on that in just a little bit. But before we do, I just kind of want to get your big picture view of where do you think things are? Because it's easy to just get lost. Like, oh, there's cool new toys, but I feel like there's like a handful. Like there's something resembling a whole stack, you know, like a complete alternative internet stack. And I mean, it's not obviously from TCP/IP, but I mean, like in the case of delivering services, files, websites, social, identity, like all of these things, it feels like we kind of have the pieces. They're still not together, but
Definitely not.
I don't know. Unpack, respond. I'm curious.
Yeah, so I think there are a bunch of interesting signals that the people that were working on building the internet throughout the past few decades, they were aiming towards. They just didn't have the building blocks. So, I mean, the obvious one is 402, like HTTP code 402, payment required. That's an obvious one. It's been there for literally decades, completely unused because there was no way of using it. And now we have the technology to use it. It's just not widely distributed yet. But I think that's coming very soon. I mean, the L402 and this kind of stuff, it's clearly where we're going. And then you have stuff like semantic web, which was trying to solve the addressability of content problem in a very naive, never it's gonna work way. But I mean, the intention, it shows you that they were thinking about that problem. They just didn't know how to solve it, right?
Yeah.
They
need a couple more decades of beating your head against it and doing it wrong and figuring out why and how it's wrong or incomplete. Maybe is the better way to think about it.
I think I think one of the missing pieces was Bitcoin in a way. And I think one of the missing pieces was something like Lightning. Lightning offers something that was required to make this work. Which it might not be Lightning, it might be Lightning, but something like Lightning, like this ease and speed of sending these micropayments was kind of important. And I think it has a lot.
I want to pause right there before. Hold that thought. You got where that was going? You got it in your head?
Kind of.
Okay.
I have a 1 month old, man. I'm sleep deprived all the time. So.
Oh God, 1 month?
Yeah, 5 weeks today.
Wow, dude. Oh my God, I knew it was fresh, but oh my God, that's so amazing. Dude, congratulations again. Congratulations again. That's, God, 5 weeks. I'm trying to remember. It's been 14 months over here. So, and you think it feels like 5 weeks was yesterday, but you're like, no, that was like 13 years ago at least. It's like even trying to remember. I think I had amnesia for that whole period.
Yes, that's the feeling.
That's probably part of the process, is that like the only way that you can encourage parents to have additional kids is to give them amnesia for the first 3 months.
With my wife, the fact that because so this is our second one, and with the first one, we remember the feeling of, oh my God, this is painful, this is hard, but then after a few years, you're like, it wasn't that bad, right?
No,
it's okay. You just don't sleep for a few months, but whatever. Okay, but where were you?
The lies. Oh, the lies. Yes. So the Lightning Network. So one of the things that you said at the beginning, talking about how like people are coming to Bitcoin from Nostr, and you say like, maybe it's not Lightning. I really think it's hard to discount the momentum and seeing the workflow, like seeing the process the way it is today, because it does work. And one of the interesting things about people coming straight from Nostr to Bitcoin is that they only touch, their first touch is Lightning. Yeah, every time. It's about zaps. It's not about sound money. It's not about this, that, or the other. It's about the fact that people are zapping on Nostr and they want to know what that is and they want to know how to play. And like that's such a fascinating thing to me, and I think it opens up like just the space of services. Like, have you seen the demo of Green with Lightning and Green Wallet with Lightning, Bitcoin, and Liquid together?
I haven't seen it.
Have you seen the little video? Well, they're finally releasing a new version of Green Wallet that has Lightning built in with their Greenlight node service, and then the Breeze SDK. So everything is instant. It just goes. It's all working with the LSP, and your node is always online because your phone only holds and it's super lightweight,
it's only
insanely fast because they're holding they're dealing with the infrastructure. But I think this could actually lead to incredibly quick and far more sovereign, like self-custodial Lightning addresses.
Yeah.
Like this could basically solve the quote unquote wallet of Satoshi problem. Is that the reason people use wallet? Everybody's like, oh, don't use custodial, don't use custodial. It's like you need a Lightning address. You need a Lightning address. Period. You know, like if that's not easy, nobody's gonna have it. Everybody's just gonna use wallet of Satoshi. That's how you get apps. Period. So anyway, I wanted to just mark that down because I think I think Lightning has 100x, 1000x easy to pull in like an ecosystem of people. Like I think it's still a very, very small piece of what it is going to be. And I think we can have a place where there's like 1 million, 10 million live channels. And it's essentially a source of forever future demand for block space, essentially.
Block space,
Like I think I see it as the clear way that the fee structure, the fee market is actually maintained, because they're all time locks. Like every bit of it is a futures contract on block space. That's what a Lightning channel is, right? So like just thinking about markets and stuff, like I just like the fact that Nostr is bringing people straight to Lightning is fascinating, and I think is really, really powerful. And anyway, go back. Sorry. What was the
No. Yeah, I agree. And kind of where I was going is similar to what you were saying, is that Lightning has unlocked some use cases that were not possible, even with if you were to go BSB with like all these whatever gigabyte blockchain, gigabyte blocks, you still would not have it, right? And these new use cases are part of the things that Nostr has leveraged and has unlocked all these use cases built on top of the use cases that Lightning has enabled. But again, even if you go to just something like DNS SRV records, which is something that was very cool. I was working actually in 2006 when I was reading Human Action. I was working at Merrill Lynch, and what we were working on was very reliant on DNS SRV records, which is this very obscure part of DNS. No one really uses it. The idea is very cool, but it's like semantic web. It's just the idea is cool. Yeah. It's just impractical. But SRV records are a way for computers based. I mean, TLDR is a computer says I want to service.
Can you explain that to people? What is the VNS? Give me a simple version of it, just in case somebody doesn't know what we're talking about.
Oh yeah, so DNS is how computers basically how they do name resolution. So when you enter whatever google.com, you are not connecting to something called google.com. You need to connect to an IP address. So you resolve google.com into an IP address, and then you connect to that IP address. And there's a whole list of record types on DNS that give you different type of data. The typical one is A, which is this name. Give me an IP address, but yeah, there's a lot more. One of those others is SRV, and SRV is a service, and that's why SRV. And services, a computer says, I'm interested in service X. And the DNS server replies with the information that you require to connect to that service. So you do not talk to a name. You just say, I want LDAP, or I want whatever web app or whatever service you're interested within an internet, and you get an endpoint to connect to with a port and priorities and stuff like that, which is very cool, right? Because as a developer, instead of integrating with an endpoint, and instead of saying, oh, I need to configure this so it connects to this thing to talk to the printer, it just says, I want printer. And the printer says, I'm here, right? Nostr kind of gives you that. Like the way Wallet Connect works is you send requests, and your wallet is responding to those requests. The way NSEC Bunker NIP46 works is, I want this signed. Someone sign it. And the integrations that allows is very cool. And the way which I'm pretty sure we're going to talk about, the data vending machines, NIP, that I wrote, is heavily reliant on this model. It just creates a marketplace around this idea of, I want X, and I will not integrate with someone. I will just request X.
Make a request.
Just say, I want a transcription, or I want ChatGPT to give me something, or I want some image generating for me, and I'm willing to pay. And the service providers come to you instead of you going to them, which opens this whole wide chaos of competition. It's just like an enormous free market that
it makes the social graph a bidding network.
Exactly, and anyone new can come in, right? Like you could advertise your service by creating
like
something more valuable. Yeah, it is.
It's the mempool for everything. We're going pretty deep here. Let me stop you, and we'll come back to the marketplace. Tell me a little bit. Get a little more specific about InSec Bunker. I haven't even used InSec Bunker. I've been using Albi to sign in, just because they have the punch in your keys, and I've been doing mostly outside of Damus on the phone, which I still have the one I can zap with, outside of Damus, I use Albi on desktop, and I just started playing around with Amethyst on Android. But tell me about InSec Bunker, and will I be able to? Is this something that I can use on both mobile platforms? Give me details. What is InSec Bunker?
So the idea behind InSec Bunker, I can't recall exactly why I needed it. But I was working on something. Oh yeah, I think it was. I wanted to build an extension for Chrome, and extensions can't easily talk to each other. So my extension would either have to inject just random code into every single website that you visit, which I didn't want to do. Right? I do not want to have to inject stuff.
That's awkward.
It is. That's how pretty much all extensions work. I just didn't want to do it. But this idea that you install some app and it says this application will have the ability to modify every website and see everything that you're there. I don't know. That didn't feel right to me, so I didn't want to write that. So it was either I will have to then ask for my users for this fucking extension. They will have to give me their NSEC, which was, I also don't want to do that. And I started thinking, okay, how is this going to work, right? Are you going to just, which I also saw the trend that every single new app, especially mobile apps, they have this field for login, paste your NSEC, which is, everybody's going to get pricked, like sooner or later. Everybody's going to get pricked. Like you're pasting your key. Imagine that for Bitcoin. Like, imagine if every single thing, like you want to see if your mempool, if your transaction, where is it is on the mempool. Okay, give me your 12 words. It's like, no. It's insanity, right? So I started
actually on that. Oh no, keep going. Well, I've come back.
So what I was thinking is, okay, if we want, like, the interoperability of Nostr is one of the coolest thing that it has. Like, you can go to this micro app that has like this very specific functionality. It's really good at doing that, and that's it. Now, is every app going to ask you for your NSEC in that way? or they will require this extension that most people are not going to install. It's not going to work well. Like you're going to have it on your computer but then if you want to take it to your phone, to me this is really, really messy, and this is bound to get people wrecked. So Tiago from Fuji USD and a bunch of other I just punched my my lamp from Fuji USD and a bunch of other projects. 1 second, I'm gonna fix this up.
Gotta get good lighting. Is your backlight good?
There we go.
You got all
Is that
three?
good?
Got three, yeah.
No, I'm outside, so it's either this or I'm in the dark.
Oh.
I'm in the balcony. The baby's asleep, man.
Oh yeah. You gotta go outside. I'm in the basement. I'm in there's concrete behind me. You can't even see.
That's nice. So Tiago came up with a NIP46, which is a way to do remote signing. It's like like BLS basically, where you just publish the events that you want signed, and it gives you back the signature, and you publish them, right? So the way he had thought about it is you'll have your keys on your phone and you scan a QR code, and then from your phone you authorize the signing. To me, that was a little bit messy, especially because it's the keys are on the phone, so that means that the phone has to be online all the time, right? So to me, it's like, okay, I want to have these keys on my Bitcoin node because it's already a Lightning node. It's already 24/7 online with keys. So I just want my key there and sign everything from there. So yeah, NSEC Bunker is that. It's like a daemon that you run on your Umbrel or your Start9 or just anything. And it just signs events for you. So you don't have to have the key in every specific application. Your application just says, I want to sign as key as this NPub. And then from your NSEC Bunker, you say yes or no. And you can say, you can even do like HSM where you can authorize signing some events, right? Like maybe you want to give authorization to an employee to sign short notes, but you don't want to give them authorization to change the profile or change the Lightning address of your profile, for example. So it gives you like this capability, which I think is very cool. A bunch of clients are starting to implement it. So yeah, there's quite a few clients that support this type of signing. And what's cool is that the other clients or relays, they don't have to change anything. They cannot tell that events have been signed remotely. Whereas before we had NIP26, which I was
That's interesting. I don't think I realized that. Yeah.
Yeah, to me it's huge because NIP26 was sort of trying to do something similar, but it had a huge requirement for relays because they needed to index all these. Like for NIP26, you would sign a delegation token. So the pub key on the event would be different than your pub key. So now if someone asks for an event that you sign, it needs to find that pub key and every delegation token that you've ever signed. And the delegation, it's a mess because the delegation tokens has conditionals. So that means that the relays need to be aware of the conditionals. They need to execute. I mean, they need to inspect the conditionals. It's very heavy. It's very burdensome, right? Like if NIP26 would have been successful, if
it's not dumb enough. It's doing too much.
It's not doing so much. But at the same time, it's not specific enough, right? Because say, for example, I give a delegation token that expires in 1 month. That means that within that 1 month, you can go crazy. You can do whatever the hell you want, right? You can spam people, tagging them, create 1 million events per second. There is no limit, right? So I sent, maybe like 6 months ago, I sent a PR to make the conditional narrower, so you could scope it and you could say you can only sign when it has this content and this blah blah blah. But it starts as you realize how not narrow it is, how wide it is. Yeah, you start thinking the more
is pretty massive.
It's insane. It's insane. It starts growing exponentially, the demand on relays, and at the same time, clients need to support it specifically. Whereas NIP46, that they cannot even tell that something weird happened, which is really, really cool.
How do you give granular control? Exactly. Like,
It's an HSM, right? So the HSM can execute whatever policy you want on your backend. So the way I wrote in
wait, you're just making the conditionals.
you're just making the conditions. And
You're just, and you're checking
your node.
Oh, fucking
You're
duh.
just checking.
Okay.
So
You're
can do whatever
just
you want.
becoming your own little tiny relay, basically. Like so you just check all.
And you're just giving.
Yeah.
Exactly, and you can do whatever policy you want. You can only write nodes that have poop inside the node, or you can do whatever the hell, or you can
Anything that you could script up, you can do. I could probably do this with ChatGPT. Like
exactly. The policies are super simple.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah,
I just searched it
cool,
on both. I just searched it on both. I didn't realize the granularity there. That's pretty fucking wonderful. But I don't have. How do I get it? I searched it on both marketplaces. It's not on the marketplace.
I didn't write it yet. I hate using Docker.
Okay.
I hate building stuff with Docker, but it's Dockerized.
Dude, I feel you, but yeah.
But right now, if you go to the GitHub of NSecBunker, it's like one command: the Docker run Pablo /NSecBunker D, and then you have to say this is the admin that will be able to modify this, or you can just use the command line. Like you would be able to use the command line. It's very simple command line. But basically, you just say for this application, and the cool thing is that each application creates its own private key. So then you can say, for this application, I want to allow signing for this kind. And for this application, so for example, it doesn't support it, but SapplePay, you could say, I give a key to SapplePay that can only sign SAPs. And that's it.
Yeah, it can only tap. Yeah.
It can only SAP. It cannot do anything else. It cannot read your DMs. It cannot encrypt. It cannot decrypt. It cannot do anything weird. It can only SAP. And yeah, you can go. I mean, if you use, say, for example, a chat client, maybe you want to allow that chat client to only do chat, but not change a bunch of shit that you don't want it to change. So yeah, I mean, it's an HSM, right? It's just
nice,
fully flexible.
Yeah. So, marketplace. Now, this is the main thing, and you're also doing highlighter. God, too many things, man. Okay, let's go to the marketplace.
They are
from
all
there,
intertwined. They are all intertwined.
Yeah.
I'm just building the stuff that I need to be able to move forward. Like the marketplace stuff, I built it because I needed it.
Yeah. And I'm fucking so excited about highlighter. I'm a fiend about like trying to take good notes and record links and like all of that stuff. And I've been like a little bit just like, I can't wait to see like the full thing in action, because as soon as I did that episode on it or whatever, and you commented underneath it, it's like, dude, I feel all of this. And I was like, oh my God, you're building something. Please, Jesus, solve this problem. As the Nostr Necromancer come to my rescue.
Yeah, so for highlighter, what I really wanted, like the idea for highlighter top level, like the way I wrote it when I was thinking what is highlighter is a client that is for your most valuable information, as opposed to most social clients that the emphasis is on the real time aspect of the information, right? Like you go to Deimos or you go to Amethyst or to Snort or to any client, and they'll show you what's the latest that has happened, right?
Yeah.
They don't start with, this is what happened 6 months ago, right? No, they started, this happened a minute ago. So for highlighter, I want to be able to capture all this information. And I'm sure, probably like you, that I've been using Obsidian and many years ago, Evernote and Rome Research and Notion. Like I've tried all these things.
You just gave me my whole list back to me. I'm on Obsidian right now.
Obsidian, I think, is the closest.
Yeah.
Obsidian is almost great. Obsidian is just missing it's just missing like these few keys to make it
Yeah.
fucking wild. And content addressability, I think, is one of them. I think the fact that it is its own data store, regardless of like, yes, you can sync it to this thing or to this thing or to this other thing, and it's robust in the sense that you are not locked into like Evernote. But the fact that the data is contained there and cannot be interlinked, it's like a very important part. But the main idea, so going back to the marketplace stuff, the main idea what I wanted to for highlighter is I listen to a lot of podcasts. And many times I hear something really interesting, very thought-provoking. Capturing it is very hard. Capturing it is not easy enough for me to do it in a consistent way.
Yeah.
What I want is on my phone, I hear something and I tap like two things and boom, it's captured.
There's a clip.
There's a clip. I think Fountain does a very good job within the constraints of the device itself, the constraints of the screen being small. Finding the start and end of a clip takes too long.
Yeah.
And the fact that the output is audio is also a problem. And the fact that the audio is...
I mean, as opposed to something like video?
As opposed to a transcription, as opposed to text.
Oh, as opposed to the text. Okay.
Yeah. So what I wanted for highlighter is to be able to, in 1 or 2 taps max from whatever on Overcast or whatever, Apple Music, whatever the hell it is. I want to, within a few taps, to be able to get a transcription of that thing among my notes. Not in some specific app that is for podcast clips. I want it to be among my reading list, my stuff that is... So, because, say, for example, if I'm reading about climbing and I'm listening to a climbing podcast, I hear something about training, I want that bit of information to be easily accessible within the stuff that I'm reading, the stuff that I'm reading online or in a book or videos that I'm watching.
Like the same thing happens when I'm like doing audiobooks. I'm like, oh my God, that's a great source. Like when I'm listening to an audiobook or whatever, that's a great source for X, you know, and it's gone. It's gone. I don't know how to search it again, you know, like after I'm done with the audiobook, I was like, wow, that had like 50 great resources that I could just have on hand, but they're gone. In fact, one of the things that I had started to do is try to figure out how to get the PDF or a text version of the book so that after I was done with the audiobook, which there's still like, you know, torrent communities and some things like that out there. But because like some of them you can get a hold of them if you own one version, you can get digital versions, but it's not very many. So it's like buying it over and over again. But regardless, it's just so that I can search, so I can just find that one clip or that piece of the book that I was like, oh my God, this is like gold information. So anyway. Yes,
yeah, and it's so sad, right?
Totally get that context. Yeah,
because we go through this kind of thing very often, and even within, say, for example, Evernote, that has like this very shitty format. You write something and you take the time of maybe on a bookmarking something and then saving it on Evernote or whatever it might be, and that information goes there and kind of goes there to die. It's like the January gym memberships, right? It's like very hopeful, you know. It's like, okay, this will be the year I'm gonna be fit.
Yes.
No one goes back to those notes, right? It's just like those notes lack context. They meant something within the context of the book, and they have context as you're listening to them or as you're reading them. But in 6 months, that means fucking nothing. It's like it's fully gone. It's fully gone. Whereas if you're able at the moment that you hear something or that you read something that is thought-provoking, you're able to link it with something else that you've read and that you've found that is interesting. And if that data is available everywhere, it's not locked into one client, and say you want to have for example, a marketplace of AIs that are connecting this data that you have been producing over any subject and compile them and give you new things that you should look at, I think it becomes very compelling, right? Because it unlocks. We've had this collection of information, but the transformation of this information into knowledge has been missing. And I think something like Nostr really enables us to have the tools, to build the tools to unlock all this knowledge that has been rotting.
It's funny. It really does kind of need a marketplace when you think about it. Like, like it can't really be accomplished. Like the stack that would be necessary if you were doing every single piece of it is like a single corporation or something, you know? Like that level of integration requires almost necessarily requires some sort of a protocol and some sort of like open place to make the exchange. And out of curiosity, have you seen the video that I did with transcription? Because
I started watching it this morning. I didn't finish. I got to like 10 minutes. But yeah. I'm aware.
Yes. But like that's part of why I'm building this machine, because I'm trying to anticipate what the value of having this GPU plugged into the Nostr network might be 6 months down the road. Because not only do I want these services for myself, like, and this is all about self-hosting and, you know, being sovereign, because I don't want to have to get my AI capabilities or productivity or workflow by logging into some Microsoft service. Like I'm so done with that shit. Like if I have to change my entire process, which, you know, that's really kind of like one of the things is that if there's staying power, if there's moment or inertia with what you are already doing, it's hard to go away from Gmail. It's hard to go away from the Google suite or to leave the Apple cloud and app store and everything. But the thing is if I'm forced into a position where I have to make the migration anyway, because of just a larger technological shift, the fuck if I'm going to switch to one that's not, I'm going to go through all the work to switch to another centralized solution, you know, if the other exists, you know? And so anyway, I'm increasingly thinking that this is, I'm building a computer to be not only my own little workstation, but hopefully to be a part of this economy, to just have it running and fulfilling requests all day.
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty sure that that's going to happen. To me, it's sort of like the fight between communism and free markets. Because if you look at something like LangChain that has captured the imagination of a lot of people in the AI world.
Can you tell me, fuck, I don't mean to interrupt, but can you tell me a little bit about LangChain? I keep hearing about it and I know vaguely what it is, but can you give me a little bit of specific? Because I don't have a running instance of this. This is one of the things I haven't really unpacked.
So basically is, within LangChain, you can create a bunch of models, agents, they call them agents. You can create a bunch of agents and you can have them work among themselves, right? Like you can say, okay, agent 1, you have to do this, and you are this profile, and you have these capabilities, or whatever.
Okay, so it's the flow model with the nodes connecting each other. Okay, so I've seen this thing. I've just not been completely aware of what I'm looking at. Okay.
Yeah, so the thing is that it requires someone, whether it's you, whether it's an agent, whether it's whatever, to create the design of agent 1, go to agent 2, go to agent 3, go to agent 4, right? So
create the flow.
Regardless of who is doing it, it is still a top-down approach, right? Whereas the idea, to me, it's so clear that just approaching it from a free market where each agent is competing with each agent on specific domains, it's a better model because you don't require this design of what the workflow looks like. You allow the market to create, like you don't go and say, okay, I need to create a shoe. Okay, I'm going to design where the rubber is going to come from, and the rubber needs to go to this factory. I mean, that's literally communism, right? That's the way that we're doing, the central planners were doing it. Whereas with these ways, I'm a service provider that I have this capability and I will compete in this way or this other way. And they can have all kinds of different capabilities and risk models. It's just chaos, which is, emergent order. So yeah, to me, it's
remarkably similar to kind of the beginning of a really long and fascinating thread I took with Dhruv on AI Unchained. He has such a fascinating perspective on what the marketplace of AI will be, and we kind of like unpacked that shit for like an hour. But that it's not out yet, but it immediately was reminiscent of that. So you should definitely watch that one. I'll send you that link if you ever get the time. It's long. It's 2.5 hours, but
nice. I'll watch it. Yeah, to me, a marketplace for this kind of thing makes a whole lot more sense than a top-down approach. And Nostr is really good at marketplaces because within Nostr, we get this DNS SRV capability of saying, I want X and I don't care who is serving me this X. Maybe I will care at some point, right? Maybe I will say, well, I know this service provider is really shitty, so I don't want to work with that one. Like you can discover this intelligence, but this idea of I will broadcast,
it's all downstream.
Exactly. And each NPAV, each customer, whether the customer is a person or another service provider, they can create their own intelligence. Because one of the things that a lot of people gave me feedback on when I started publishing the first draft is giving me basically saying I should structure the way the protocol works so that there are more guarantees. And my whole point is I don't want them to be guaranteed. I want people to be able to go bankrupt based on this. Like if you run a service provider that is doing really shitty risk analysis and is serving data to anyone without computing whether it's likely that person will pay for the data or not, I don't want them to tell. I don't want to be the one that tells them how to run their business. Hey, if they make bad decisions, just let them go bankrupt. What's the problem?
The problem will sort itself out. I don't.
Precisely, man. Precisely. Yeah. These type of problems are better solved at the edges.
So, how is this going to? I haven't played with it yet, so I don't have like hands-on experience with. I haven't gotten to tinker, but how do you imagine? How's this interface going to be? How will you interact with it? And also, this is kind of its own and pretty broad question, but we've also kind of got competing implementations of this sort of idea with different protocols. So Fedi is building something extremely similar to this. And then I know there is a kind of hole punch version of realizing this like basic peer-to-peer service provision. Is it your estimate that why do you think Nostr is the one to work on in regards to this? And so, yeah.
Yeah, so I started talking with Cody from Fedi, and we actually pair program, and he got a fork of my code running, doing stuff for him, and he demoed something. Yeah, he demoed a data vending machine that was a code reviewer. It was a very funny one because he wrote a few different code reviewers. So he integrated it with Replit. So within Replit, you can have extensions, and as he was writing code within Replit, he could hit the extension, and the extension would publish a job on Nostr saying, "I want a code reviewer. I want a code review of this code," and then he had two service providers running. One of them was a real one, giving real feedback and asking for money in exchange for that feedback, like 10 sats, I think it was. And the other one was a Rust shell. So it was just rewrite your entire code always in Rust. uh, and give you inline comments saying why you should use Rust instead of whatever else you're using and stuff like that. It was really, really funny. So I think the stuff with the stuff that Fedi is working on is extremely complementary. I'm not sure what Synonym is working on with regards to AI stuff like marketplaces.
I don't think it's Synonym, and maybe what I heard wasn't even a live project. Maybe it was just a concept that someone was exploring or something.
Become alpha.
I did it bad. I'm gonna get kicked out of all those Keek groups.
No, so the Fedi thing, I think it makes a lot of sense. Actually, Cody was telling me that this would make a lot of sense to have within Fedi federations, have service providers just competing for job requests in just the Nostr marketplace, which to me makes perfect sense. This idea of moving the compute locally to within the federation, man, this idea of moving stuff towards the edges, and federations being an extra hub, I think it's a very powerful concept, and I think it very obviously applies here very well.
It's also specifically why I think Lightning is going to be it, in the sense that not only is it going to lead the next cycle and onboard tons of people into Bitcoin, quote unquote, natively, but I can already see the next stage in which Lightning utilizes that network and liquidity effect and becomes the kind of liquidity web connecting everything together on, quote unquote, layer 3 or other layer 2s. Like with Fedi and eCash and Liquid and all of these things, like Lightning is kind of the magic sauce that makes all of those work together.
It's the glue.
It's the glue, and more importantly is that it is the liquidity network that plugs into everything. So it's not merely, it's the right technology. It's literally building out a massive network effect inertia of the fact that it can settle transactions. Like it can settle payments. And if you spin up a Fedi, you can easily plug it into Lightning, and now again, the network effect. The Fedi can now talk to everything. Everything adds. There's no network effect fighting. It's all network effect addition. It's a positive feedback. So
what's interesting is that we usually, whenever you wanted to launch anything, you had this bootstrap problem of how do you get customers? How do you get liquidity? How do you getting anything started, getting any type of momentum was extremely, extremely hard. And things like Lightning and things like Nostr, they give you kind of for free this network effect instead of, say for example, Spotify. They invested so much in trying to get you to create a graph, a social graph within Spotify, and they have failed massively. Google, YouTube did the same thing, like the follow and all the things. It really doesn't work. And getting people to create a powerful graph is fucking hard. And now you can launch any kind of application within Nostr. You launch
hard
anything.
To have friends
you already have
again. It's so hard to have friends again or follows again in another app, and it's like, they take away from each other.
It is a lot of work.
Yeah.
It's a very big ask from your users. People will not do that for free, right? Especially now, right? Maybe when Facebook launched and when Twitter launched, it was a novel concept, and it was easier to get people to do that. But nowadays, it's like, okay, I'm gonna rebuild my graph for the 50th time this month. Like, fuck this.
I don't follow anybody in Spotify. I have podcasts.
No one does.
Podcast app, right?
It's like the saddest.
Follow somebody's playlist.
They follow.
Like, come on. Oh shit. Okay. So Nostr is the path, but obviously Fedi, and I think Hole Punch too. These are
tell me-
really,
tell
really
me-
great compliments.
Tell me about the whole project. Before getting very down into Nostr, I was extremely excited about the whole bunch. Actually, my website has been a hypercore for like 2 years.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I built quite a few things that never took off using before it was whole bunch, when it was hypercore.
Back when it was hypercore. Man, I still think it's got a, like, particularly in regards to Keat. I think one of the reasons why the momentum does not hold like Nostr has, at least so far, is because they kind of tackled the hardest problem for a peer-to-peer network.
Peer-to-peer is hard. Yeah.
You know, like what they should have done is, and what they should have done, that's kind of like my nature too, right? Is that when I don't know how to use Adobe After Effects, I try to come up with the most complicated meme with all these effects and all of these things, and I just like dive in head first and just take off all the life jackets and everything and just, go into it and see what the fuck I can do. So I kind of have that tendency, right? Like I don't want to do the low-hanging fruit. I want to do the hardest thing that I want to do what I want to do, right?
Yeah, totally.
So maybe that's a part of it, and like I'm not really judging them for that. But because by making Keat work, like Keat Desktop works so great. Like I'm working with the project that I was just talking about. We're doing it all through Keat. Like we don't message on anything else. But I think the low-hanging fruit with that is fixing BitTorrent or replacing BitTorrent, like making file sharing what BitTorrent wanted it to be, but the scope that it couldn't accomplish, Hypercore can, or Hole Punch can. So that's actually the direction that I'm trying to take, like, that I want like us to be building toward, because I think it's easy. It's easy better than everything else. Like it's the obvious thing for something where you could have a couple of seconds delay. It's like files. This is, like in the regards of building like a network of people like connected to it. Just peer-to-peer, dealing with peer-to-peer problems. But they're about to release the Big Rooms update, which they said is basically going to handle thousands, tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people. And they just finally dropped a little video about it. Like they're teasing it, and they showed pictures of what they were doing, like what they'll be dropping with it. So I'm excited to see a little bit of momentum come back to that.
But it's also synonym, right?
That's not synonym. No, well, it's from Pablo. Like Pablo is working with Synonym, helping to fund Synonym, and also Matthias. But Keat and Synonym are different.
I thought Keat was part of Synonym.
I don't think it is.
Oh, interesting.
Maybe I'm wrong. But I thought they were separate. Like John Carvalho, I don't think is like. I think Matthias is running Keat, and John Carvalho is running Synonym, and they're doing the Bitcoin wallet and LSP thing over Hypercore, and Keat is just the chat app. That's at least how it feels as I'm talking, and in those communities they feel separate.
To me, one of the things that kind of disappointed me was their approach to open sourcing and just building in public, basically. I think that's
really hurting their momentum. Is they don't have people building.
I think they made up, and I heard Pablo say a few times that they didn't want some shitcoiner to come in and put a token on it, but I don't get that. I mean, you can apply that to everything, right? Like you can apply that to Linux.
That's not.
You can apply that.
Yeah, yeah.
And to me, yes, like you said, I think this approach has hurt their momentum. Do you see people creating a social graph on using hypercores, like using BitKit? And
I'm more likely to think that the momentum behind Nostr is hard to deny. And I think the number of people building on it and the number of, just what you're working on, like the expansion of its capability and the fact that it just already has a social graph. I think that's more likely, at least right now, to be what I would think of as the dominant social graph. And it certainly is at the moment. And or at least in the decentralized or the peer-to-peer sense, like the I own my social graph. But I think there's still a really, really good place in the context of hole punch of devices, like still using a graph of like allowed devices and allowed peers for file sharing and everything basically built on top of it. Like, I think if you build the file sharing blocks first, there's just a massive amount of potential there, because there's just no, and maybe I'm an idiot, maybe I'm not finding something simple, but I hate all of the file server solutions. I hate all the file sharing, and just what we have so far, like what we're playing around with, is better. It's better. It's just fast as hell, and it works. Now it's like we're just sharing its messages with, Keat or whatever, or like a basic like STDN file or something like that. Like, but it is syncing, it is working, and it is immediate. And if you share like a multiple gigabyte movie over Keat, it plays instantly. Like, yeah. I'm immediately playing and scrubbing through the movie. I can't do that with, I'm working with two people right now, and I use Mega, and it's kind of like just the best solution, and it's a centralized solution that I pay for, and I have a Linux server. Like, I have servers all over the place. It's set up, I use my embassy, but shit's slow. It's half of it has to run over Tor because I don't have a web front to point it to. The fuck if I'm going to set up a web address for everything that I do? And like, Hole Punch just makes all that shit go away. I'm just like, maybe I'm wrong, but I am willing to just build what I want out of that. I mean, I'm kind of where you are in the context of like Highlighter or something. Like, I don't give a shit. If nobody else likes it, fuck it. I will spend thousands of dollars to just fix this problem. So anyway, that's how I feel about Hole Punch and their stuff right now. Maybe not Social Graph so much. Maybe it leans on Nostr.
I built Subster, which is like a Spotify client using Nostr. But of course it doesn't have, like, the files are not in Nostr, are not in relays. It's just some URL. Yeah. And I started playing with, okay, how am I don't want to depend on this URL. How am I going to provide an alternative? And one of the things that I actually started writing it because it's in my toolkit using Hole Punch. Well, not Hole Punch, using Hypercores. And I have a branch on Subster that I've never finished, but it allows you to just start seeding a hypercore and just use that for file distribution, because I agree, it's fast as fuck. It's just really hard to debug. When it works, it's great.
To what?
To debug when there's a problem.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Whereas one of the things that absolutely shocked me about Nostr is that within like literally less than 10 minutes after I started playing with it, like coding it, I was able to build something that had synchronization with all other devices, because I was building something that, like a little website to change my profile name or some stupid shit like that. And I had Deimos open, and I changed it on the little thingy that I was making, and it changed on Deimos. I was like, what the fuck? Like, there is no way that just happened. But it's just the fact that it's WebSockets. It's obviously going to happen. But like, inter-process communication, in like synchronization among processes in computer science, is like a really fucking hard problem. Yeah. And Nostr is just by default, if you don't do anything, it works. And to me, that is so fucking wild. It's like, it's like a developer's wet dream.
Yeah, for sure. It really is nuts, kind of the breadth of what this could be, and I think we're already seeing it. And it's interesting too. I feel like, and maybe it's just coming across my feed, or like people are talking about it now. But I feel like the e-girls thing. Did that just happen on Nostr?
Yeah.
Recently?
Yeah, a few days ago.
But
Don't pretend that you are not fully aware of when it happened.
no, I'm wondering when it started. I'm wondering because I just started hearing about it. There was porn. It was funny when Kiwi released this was hilarious. I was like, wait, what's happening right now? When Kiwi released their web app on their page, like on their website, they just had like a live feed of the global and the little fake app thing. And I'm thinking of it like this is an animation or like a video or something. And I go over, it's just like naked bitches like scrolling. I'm like, wait, what? They put this on their website, and then it like hit me as like, oh shit, that's just global. Oh God. But it's interesting to like what's funny is that I think that should truly be embraced. Like it really should, because like, it's one of those specifically underrepresented, that's not the word. They're what's the word? Ostracized, taboo. It's like it's a taboo community that like fits with it's why like almost all subversive or kind of decentralized technology, what is it gets used for? It's drugs and porn, right? And it's usually a major factor in the network effect of expanding and actually does it do what it's supposed to do for exactly the sorts of people who are most likely to need this solution. And that's why also like Gladstein, when he posted recently about like the top requests from dissidents and people in basically under tyrants, and in like the developing world who need like certain privacy elements and things with Nostr. And then we have these like huge bounties, like that's fucking great, you know? Like one of the first things that I thought, like when you see like try to build the Nostr graph, or like what the genuine use case here is like go find all the dissidents everywhere, get all of them and bring them to Nostr. It'll be a little bit of it'll be a fun culture shock, but we kind of need the truckers, we need the like just all of it, you know. I mean it's kind of like Bitcoin, right? Is that Silk Road was the first thing that really proved that Bitcoin does its job, and that Bitcoin was truly non-state, you know, like it was money without the state. I don't think you can separate that from Bitcoin's history. I don't think you can separate it also from proving the power of a truly independent and just an independent protocol. And I think we should lean into that really hard with Nostr.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you think about it, when there are tools, the people that are going to tinker with the tools are the geeks that are interested in the tools because of their very nature, but soon after is the people that need those tools. Like there's a lot of emphasis on onboarding in Bitcoin. How do you get people to do this and that? And that's only a problem when you don't really have a burning problem. But in Argentina, people will learn, like people do learn how. But I orange peeled my 103-year-old grandfather because he had gone. In Argentina, he had gone through many rugs throughout his life. And when I told him, like when I really understood Bitcoin, and I told him, no one can take this away from you, and no one can just print the shit out of it. That's it. Like that's the picture.
That was it. I was done orange pilling. I was like, all right, see you later, man.
Yeah. He figured out the 12 words. He figured out all that shit, right? Like,
wow.
But if you have the issue, like you'll figure it out. It's not that hard.
It's one of those things specifically too, is that like it's also exactly the demographic, so to speak, that that doesn't have that inertia for the alternative or for the more mainstream options, right? Like they have to have an alternative. So getting them to switch isn't the like somebody who's just in, you know, hanging out in Maine or something and has like a, you know, a normal boring life. It's like, oh well, Gmail's pretty great. It's like me. Like I still use Gmail and try not to. But some people are still like, oh, I'll invite you by your Gmail account. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So it's still there. But I don't have to have Nostr. I just love to geek out and like think I'm building and hanging out with cypherpunks. and playing the Bitcoin game, and I see this like value to the world. So
you get more Bitcoin points if you're in Nostr. So
right.
Yeah, I think that's how it works. I mean, you literally get subs. So
let's level up my Super Saiyan Bitcoin level.
Now the thing is that a lot of the focus has been a lot of the focus in Nostr development, and I think it's kind of what needed to happen, has been on building like the Twitter clones, which are okay, and they do need to exist, and I'm glad that people work on them. But that's not what's going to get people into Nostr. I mean, it's going to get some people into Nostr, but it's not compelling enough, right? Like they have these. I don't know who the hell it is, but they have this motto of like a product to disrupt the competition has to be 10x better of what currently exists. Like Nostr being censorship resistant and all this shit is great, whatever. That's not 10x for most people. That's probably not even 1x for most people. That's probably worse for most people.
It's a foundation, but it's not the service. It's not the feature, really. It's just it's the foundation that makes the next stage possible.
Exactly. I think censorship resistance is not the thing. Downstream from censorship resistance is we get this ability of integrating all these different use cases in a permissionless way. So the permissionless part is the compelling thing. It's not the censorship resistance part. Even if Nostr weren't censorship resistant, I think it would be the permissionless part is what's interesting, is the innovation. So I think
the way I like to think about that specifically is the reason censorship resistant is kind of a resistance, and they go hand in hand with permissionless, right? Permissionlessness is that like the whole breadth, the scope of what a market makes possible, and the reason it expands and it's productive and it grows is specifically because of specialization. And a permissionless protocol or a permissionless economy is explicitly one that can get orders of magnitude more specialization than one that isn't. The one 100%. That one is controlled and has barriers and gatekeepers. And because of that, it's the agorist theory. It's that the quote unquote black market will ultimately outproduce the communist or the controlled, the manipulated market until it is essentially bankrupt. But
100%. To me, one of the really cool things, as I was writing the NIP for the data vending machines, is this idea that I could use it, because one of the things that I wanted to, I don't want to run backend servers for Highlighter or any of the stuff that I build.
Sure.
So I'm always computing everything client side, right? Which gets expensive for a client. Like you have to get very clever on how you do the compute and at what point, because the data is coming in at any time, and it's sometimes it's slow to get the data. So yeah, it's an interesting problem, because usually when you are just doing typical web development or client server development, is you query for something, the database give you the right state. It's not like you are composing the state over time, over multiple seconds. One of the things that I wanted to be able to do is I want to create this, say, for example, this trending list of highlights. So what have people been highlighting the most and discussing and whatever. It sounds super simple, because doing a query for that on a database, it would take nothing and it's super cheap. But doing that in Nostr, it's really hard. I mean, it's not hard. It's just you need to download a bunch of data.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, I can write a vending machine that just gives me this data, that it computes it somewhere, and it just spews the result.
Oh shit!
Right?
You just turned that into a service for your service.
And what's really cool is that
It's a service for your
means,
service.
yeah, exactly. So that means that anyone,
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
anyone can write any kind of fucking weird algorithm to find trending topics. And you could have someone, like, you can go really, really long tail, right, as a developer, and create a feed for whatever your highlights or your notes or your long forms or whatever it might be for stuff that, it's not safe for work only, or stuff that I don't know, like any kind of really weird shit, like only give me stuff that Jack Dorsey has liked, or Jack Dorsey has sapped, or only give me stuff. Like, you could create like these very niche down algorithms for anything, and your users can choose whatever the hell algorithm they want, right? And anyone can monetize. Like, you could write an algorithm, and even if you have 20 users that are paying for that algorithm, you could write like 100 of the these very niche down algorithms and monetize them to 20 users each.
It's just a handful of people. Yeah.
It's a handful of people. You can specialize and own the
It's crazy scaling down the scope of what service
the way
provision is possible.
And
Like-
you can do the composition, right? Because the way data vending machines is, the output of a job can be the input of another job. So a user can create a chain of jobs, just publish 10 events saying, whatever is the output of this should be the input of this, whatever is the output of this, and go all the way down, right? And just any service provider that is able to serve each one of the links can specialize on that one link, right? And create an output at the other end. And yeah, you can mix and match in any way you want. And as a developer, that's very creative, right? Because you can just launch 100 of these service providers and just let them see. Let's see who makes it.
Yeah. Dude, that's fascinating. It's kind of like one of the first protocols or tools built for Lightning was liquidity provisioning for payments. Like, the first thing that Lightning solved was Lightning's own problem. Like how do you get liquidity? And like, that's kind of the same thing here. Is the first job for the vending machine is solving the categorization and accumulation of data for the vending machine and for the feeds and for Nostr itself.
Yeah, you could even have a data vending machine that is doing analysis, like a credit check on the user. So, because, for example, say I have a data vending machine. Yeah, it's a cool idea, because say, for example, I have a data vending machine that there are two vending machines. And both of them are serving transcriptions, right? Now, you request a transcription. They both estimate that the job of the transcription is going to cost 100 sats, let's say, right? One of the vending machines says, give me 100 sats and I will process this. The other one processes the job, gives you the output, and tells you, now pay me 100 sats, right? The one that gives you the output and you pay in the background and you already have the result is a better UX, right? But if that data vending machine is doing that for every single NPAV without any kind of criteria, that data vending machine is going to get abused, right? Because I'm going to spin up a million NPAVs and just flood it, right? So that data vending machine could buy the services of another vending machine, saying, should I process? How risky is this NPAV? Is this a new NPAV with no history, or is this an NPAV with 100,000 followers? It has spent this amount of money in SAPs, so it's probably good for 100 sats. Like, I can give it credit for 100 sats, And okay, if it rocks me a couple of times, then I won't work with this with this NPAV anymore. But you could have like a bunch of credit agencies vending machines.
That's fascinating. No, that's great, especially when you talk about like all the different utilizations of AI when you actually have a marketplace is the amount of like economic calculation in like weighing like the time versus the risk, like what really is the risk of an impub like rugging me for 100 sats or 1,000 sats of like some micro job, and then calculate how much it's willing to spend on a credit check for the impub in order to actually perform the task. But it's just so crazy. Like, 'cause like literally like Drew and I were talking about like this and like kind of extrapolating on what this marketplace would look like. And it's so funny that this is kind of like the beginning of a really simple version of exactly what that is, you know? And it's just moving really fast. It's moving really fast. And I'm increasingly surprised by the scope of what Nostr can embrace in such a short amount of time. You know, like just like you're talking about, like it's just so fast to deploy something like this. And these things are going to be their own. I mean, it's one of the very first things that I posted on Nostr, just talking about like the feedback loop of all of these things benefiting the network effect of every other social graph.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is just unbelievable. And one thing that I wanted to ask is just how am I going to be able to, do I need to build a plugin for Obsidian to make highlighter work across this so that they're all in my Obsidian list once I highlight something? Oh, and will there also be a private version of this in the sense that like I can save a highlighter specifically for myself and not post it publicly?
Yeah, so one of the things that I built is relays, like your relay set. I'm trying to make this into a thing in Nostr. The way I see it, I will answer your question at some point, but let me run first. The way we've been designing software for Nostr has been very much within the framework of the client server architecture, and the whole scope of the whole design space of relays has been largely ignored. We have not done anything cool because it looks so similar to client server. It looks very, very, very fucking similar, but it's not. It is a new architecture. So I'm trying to make relays into the main thing that a client would like. If you think of how you narrow down, how you scope down the data that you consume, it comes from global, and then your follow list, and then like specific niches within your follow list or within topics or stuff like that. But at the very top of that, like on top of global, is the relays that you're connected to. And so far, relays have been very much a commodity. Like it doesn't really matter. You're connected to this one and this one and this one, and I heard that this one is important, so I will add it, whatever. And there's no real reason to connect to more or less. It's like very random. So within the new UI for highlighter, I have this concept of relay sets, which are just Nostr list NIP51s of relays, and I'm trying to sort of curate them into relays where stuff about philosophy is discussed, and stuff about AI is discussed, and stuff that is specific to Austin or Madeira or whatever it might be is discussed, right? So that control is going to be at the very top, choosing the relays that you use. So if you want a private highlight, you would just connect and just set to personal or whatever guy or whatever relay set that you name, and you just publish there, and it's just on your relay, and it's fully private. You put authentication for people that want to connect to your relay. They need to have some an NPAV, an NSEC. So that's gonna be one way of doing it. And with regards to Obsidian, creating a plugin for Obsidian was the very first idea I had for Nostr. Like the first thing was, oh, I should really make an Obsidian plugin. I actually started it. I think it was probably like October last year. I started writing one, then I abandoned it. And I actually opened up the API for Obsidian, for the Obsidian plugins. I think it was this week that I opened up the API again, because it makes so much sense, right? It's like so so obvious.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's fucking great. I want to, and that's really my big thing, is I want the universal note taking. You know, like I would love Highlighter both as like a mechanism to share out and publicly post like great quotes or things that I find, but I would also like I would love it to be something that like Insect Bunker or whatever like routed through. Or like I could talk directly maybe with my just Obsidian right there, and I could choose where I want to keep it, because I might just want to save the highlighter for later, like not publish it yet, or like organize it, or I'm saving like an article for like one of my reads and stuff. And honestly, there's I only have one browser extension for it, but it's on it's just a Chrome browser extension for Obsidian, and it's just save note, and like I can highlight something and it just saves it in like whatever. I can stipulate where and what note to save stuff in, and I build like templates. But that has been a godsend. It's been a godsend. And then to be able to have like the potential of something like backlinks through all of the stuff that I save, and have it on multiple platforms eventually. Like this, it's just my dream. It's just my dream to have like one note system. I mean, I kind of have it, but it's still just not fully accessible. It still feels a little bit handicapped, even though I've got the closest thing that I've ever had to it.
Yeah, because it's not really connected to the internet, right? It's not. It doesn't like the data doesn't talk with other data. It's just there. It's just in a database that you can access from multiple places, and they cannot rug you, which is a great step. But the data, it is in a silo. It's just you control the silo. One of the reasons I delayed the writing the Obsidian part was that I tend to think that when you integrate software and just technology in general with something else, something that was designed for a different pattern, for a different architecture, it's very likely that you're not going to be thinking in first principles from first principles, and you will miss things that you could have seen. And I think that's the reason why we see so many Twitter clients that they do a really good job of recreating the Twitter experience. But say, for example, the relay set, I think that entire design space has been ignored because we've been replicating what has already existed.
We've been wanting it to behave like Twitter. Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, I've seen this before where when I wrote the email client that I wrote for Linux, Kronos is called. When I wrote Kronos, I was literally looking at other email clients that existed. I was just copying them, just like, okay, reply button here, reply all button here.
Yeah,
hey, maybe I could have come up with something more novel. Like MAT, for example, or ELM. Those are like really fucking cool clients because they had constraints, so they couldn't just copy other stuff, and they're old as fuck as well. But if you're just copying so if you're just integrating someone else, or if you're just copying something else, it's very, very likely that you're going to miss something, right?
You're not building for your foundation. You're copying what worked on a different foundation, like with a different architecture. And it's not necessarily like relays are just like you said. Relays are such a good example, and I find that really interesting because relays have always felt awkward. Like they've felt a little bit like kind of tacked on, and when people like the only reason like the apps do so well is that they just automatically connect to the relevant relay.
Which is horrible, right? It's super centralizing.
Yeah.
It's terrible for relays. It's bad for everyone. But
It takes away that optionality, which is kind of its real value of removing it. It makes a barrier or a gatekeeping sort of scenario, which entirely exists in the realm of the ignorance about the protocol. Like how it works, like so most of the people who come in, if you don't know how it works, you don't get the benefit that the protocol actually provides. And I love that. That's actually really interesting. I actually thought about it like multiple times, but not deep enough to like really pan out like some sort of a solution. But just that something needed to be intuitive there. And I really like the idea of building them around like communities or concepts, because it's really easy for people to follow topics, and we're used to thinking about topics as hashtags, right? Is that like, let me follow these tags, but it's also a community. Like the point of the hashtag is to get a community together, or have basically like a tacked on thing to where people can flag or signal that they're part of a community, or that this is what we're talking about over here. But we already have that with relays, like the idea of the ability to associate with a community based on an idea or a topic. And how easy is it? Like every social network thing you ever set up, it says, what topics do you like? Do you want to talk about sports? Do you want to talk about movies? And to remove that huge centralizing burden of having every topic through one funnel, and all those funnels sharing all of the topics of all the things, it's like, well, why don't you connect to the batch of relays that just do all of the major topics, and then you're sure to have the greatest reach in that, and then let other people that in your social graph bridge from topic to topic, bridge from relay community to relay community through quote unquote retweets, like literally make it a decentralized ecosystem.
Exactly.
Separate it out between what you're doing there.
I
really love that idea. That's fucking genius.
If you think about it, the hashtags are sort of like synthetic relays that had to be created.
That's an interesting way to put it, yeah.
Yeah, because there was only a twitter.com, so that was the relay, right? And so people came up with this synthetic solution but we have a better solution now.
Yeah. And it also lends itself to the fact that you kind of have like the Nostr DNS. Is it like, okay, well, what's Pura Vida, what's Nostr.relay, what's like if they're just like generic names, but you have the optionality of a name, like why isn't your name signaling the community you're inviting, or the type of content that you want to feed? And then you can also have like kind of explicit, it allows the ability for explicit moderation without running the risk of it devolving into just censorship. More broadly, because you just design the community, you design the content around just a specific type of thing, so that people, that just like, you're just not going to get everything through one relay. So don't think about it like that. Don't treat it like that. If you want the scope of all the things that are possible, like just open your filter. Just like, go out and select those things that you're interested in, or those communities you want to be a part of, which is fascinating.
I created a relay, a special relay project 2 months ago or so. It's called Purple Pages, and the whole idea is because before creating, it's the whole idea of Purple Pages is, so I created, before creating Purple Pages, I created an indexer. So just for fun, because I wanted to see what it would look like. So I made this thing that connected to like a bunch of relays, I think like 500 relays at the time or something like that. And it just gets everything, basically. It puts it through a pipe on Redis. And then on the other side of the pipe, there are just things, like very simple programs that I wrote that do things with that data that goes through the pipe. So like I created one that is doing like events per second counter. So it will show me on the terminal like the speed of Nostr, which was like a silly experiment. And then another one, the one that I created that ended up being Purple Pages, is whenever someone creates an event somewhere on a relay, I can tell on which relay, right? Because I know, okay, I'm connected to these 500 relays. This event came from here, 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 and here. And I can see the speed, right? Like I can see at which, relatively, because relays copy from each other sometimes. But so I can,
you can kind of see the flow of information. Yeah,
you can sort of estimate that. Okay, it's not that my connection to this relay is slower. This person actually posted to this relay, and then the event was copied to this other relay, right? Because you can measure the delta of the latency. So what I did with Purple Pages is I do like an increment by one, mapping npaths to relays. So then I can tell, okay, this npath writes to this relay, like with this frequency. But I can also doing on other things, and I can do it doing on topics. Like I can say these hashtags with photography are published on these relays, right? And then I can, from Purple Pages, I can give you what's the right union of relays that you should connect to if you want to talk to this npath, right? Which I think is a better approach than just connect to everything, because there is a whole lot of relays that you connect to, and that they are 100% in the intersection of other things that you're connected to. They give you no new data. You're just wasting your time there.
And you're just like casting a wide net, and like you're just blasting out as wide as possible. It's like trying to connect to. It's acting like it needs to be a consensus network, right? It's acting like they need to be Bitcoin nodes, and you need to just blast it to everybody. It's like, no, you need to blast it to the people who want it. And it makes sense to segment out that data. It's another like kind of form of specialization. And that's how you'll actually scale this to work in a decentralized fashion, I think, is figure out how to segment out the jobs so that you don't have to rely on central, like servers being huge. Like people are already talking about, it's like, it's like $1,000 a month to run one of these freaking relays, and like just early days.
And I think like that if we scale 100x users or 1,000x users, which would still be nothing, probably. Yeah, it would still be nothing. Running those relays would be as expensive as running Twitter infrastructure. So it cannot scale in this direction. It simply does not work in this direction. And that's why I want to see more tooling. We discussed this, like, we mentioned that it would be nice to fund this kind of thing, where we have more tooling to understand relays better, because I think the lack of specialization on relays is just downstream from the fact that clients have not allowed users to choose different relays easily. Like it should not, like Discord, right? You open Discord and you're in a bunch of communities and you click and you easily switch from one to another. It's not like you go to settings and you change this and change that and remove this connection. That's way too hard. That's way too hard. And people don't understand why they should do it. Even the question, like one of the basic questions that people ask today, and since for some time, is to what relays should I connect? And we still really don't have a good answer to that question. Like the only answer is, well, choose the fastest one. Like just go to relays.watch and just choose, which is like the speed at which you're connected to a relay is like maybe 5% of what really should matter. But the fact that they have not specialized is why that's the only thing that matters.
Yeah, that's a really interesting solution to that. And to kind of ensure that the interface pushes toward specialization. Like the way that you would interact with it encourages you to do that. As opposed to right now is that it's just again, like, I mean, I use myself as an example. Is like at the beginning, I was just like, how many relays can I connect to? And like half of them were paid. It's like pay, zap, zap, zap. You know, just like went down this list. I had like 35 relays or whatever. It's like, all right, I figured it out. And like, there's no, you know, and then like 60% of them now aren't even like, it doesn't even connect to it. I'm usually connected to like 9. And it's just like, okay, but I don't really know what to do with it. I don't know how to tackle it or go back and address anything that went wrong or which bad. I had just a bunch of fucking relays, you know. Like I don't know, they're all they have names, and I
It sounds good. Like this Eden thing, Atlas thing. Yeah. Sound good. Whatever.
No, this put out like I'm here. Okay,
I like it. But if you think about it, it used to be IRC, right? Like in IRC, you would connect to a server that had like it was kind of around the specific, like what I mean, Freenode was kind of generic, but it was a little bit more like narrower, right? Like you would connect to this one thing. It didn't have all chats in the world. Like it had the chats of that server. And in a way, I think it's like we're trending a little bit towards going back to these modes of there is no global state and we are aware and we're not trying to hide the ball that there is this global state, but there isn't. Like Twitter tells you that there is global state, right? But the global state of Twitter is Twitter's global state. Like, Twitter doesn't have the global state from YouTube or from what happened in your house. It has the state from that silo alone. But it's lying to you. It's telling you, no, this is the state of the world.
Dude, I wonder. That just got me thinking about onboarding people. It's like one of the big things that people typically do is they onboard with like a connection, like a person specifically that they're looking for. There could be something interesting there in like a link or some sort of like way, like when adding a contact to like ping to basically have them like, these are the communities that I'm in. Like to like have like some sort of an invite that kind of seeds the ground that you're going to be coming into, because like let's say like if we were friends and we're talking about Bitcoin stuff, right? And I realize I don't know about Nostr and you tell me about it. Like let's say you're on, you know, the Bitcoin relay, you're on the Cypherpunk relay, you're on the file sharing relay, blah blah blah. And I just go to Damas and I just connect to whatever the first 5 are, and you're not on any of them. Like it gives that, like the reason you have a global feed and it's so important is to connect the social graph, because the social graph is the value, right? It's why people go. But if you're specifically like, yeah, come to Nostr or whatever, and you give me your pub key or whatever, and I go to Damas and I punch it in, if it automatically is just like, these are the communities to connect to find this person, and like basically I go into the ecosystem in your social net, like in your corner of the whole network, so that specifically looking for you, like, so if I go looking for a celebrity, I just grab their thing and then I'm connected to the things that celebrity's connected to. Like there could be, again, downstream, you can see how quickly like you specialize go one layer higher and just like add in that information. And I really like the idea of kind of experimenting with how relays work, or what our relationship to relays, without confusing it with some shit like news groups or IRC, like giving the kind of like the bizarre relationship that is just why I think largely those things stayed in the places that they stayed, is because the normal UI just does not. The people from Normie Land just don't play. Like, you know.
Yeah. So two things that came up with regards to that. So the first one is with regards to you give me your npub and you're not connected to the default release for Deimos, for example. And that's one of the things that I had in mind when I started with the purple pages thing. Is I had like the analogy of using Bitcoin DNS seeding to find peers, you know? Like when you launch Bitcoin D, that it finds its peers using DNS. And what I wanted to do is like we could have like a bunch of purple pages instances. Like it's very cheap running purple pages. Like I was running it on a $5 VPS. And you could literally just ask it give me relays for npub X, and it will give you the best union of relays to connect to talk to that npub, right? So that very easily solves the discovery problem of how do I find the relays of this person if I know nothing. If I'm starting from scratch, this is one way of solving that. And the other question, or more interesting question that you asked is, or that you like the comment, is how do you find the relays that like with the communities that the person that is onboarding you is interested in or is connected to? So within what I'm doing with the highlighter is you can create this list of relays, and you can name them whatever you want. Like say, for example, as the example that I'm using all the time is philosophy relays, and it's relays where predominantly the communication is about philosophy and stuff like that. And you can even like impose it in some way within like the relay, like the operator could like reject content that is like Kardashians or whatever the fuck.
Listen, this is a really niche subset of the philosophical community that really digs into the underlying morals and kind of reflection of reality that the Kardashians represent. Jesus Christ.
So you could see, because these lists are Nostr events, they're NIF51s, Nostr events with a very specific kind number. So you could query for which are the relay sets that this person that has onboarded me has either liked or subscribes or create, like maybe the curator of that list is this person. And you could just see, like, okay, I go to you onboard me, and I go to your npub, your profile, and I see these are the relay sets that guy has curated or liked or subbed or whatever, and I can just boom, I tap. Immediately I'm connected, and I can even have different profiles. Like I could have a profile that goes really deep into my Bitcoin persona when I'm connected to the Bitcoin relay set, and I can have my climber persona on my profile on when I go to my climbing relay set. And I think it's like super cool, right? Like it's the same npub, but it has different personas. That's very cool.
Whoops, sorry, I'm muted. No, yeah, for sure. That's a really interesting way to actually utilize that, and it kind of gets me thinking, going back to thinking about the key situation. And Insect Bunker in particular is like obviously like my perfect solution because I have Embassy and Umbral, and hell, I could, if you can even like port both of them or whatever, like I could have them both connected and with the same rules or whatever, just out of sheer redundancy. But obviously that's not a normie solution. And one of the big issues that I still feel is kind of the front running issue. Like one of the big barriers that remains is key management, which obviously is like, that's the whole design of Insect Bunker, right? But what do you think is the mobile onboarding, like how are you thinking about taking Insect Bunker and making it more available, or making its process and its security implications available to like kind of an instant onboarding mobile client or a desktop client? Like what's the next stage? What's the next evolutionary step there, I guess?
Yeah, so one of the things that I thought of that this model allows is, and I'm exploring it. I just don't fully like it.
Okay.
Especially I don't want to run it, but one of the things that it allows is sort of like kind of custodial, which is why I don't like it.
Like
but
Uncle Jim.
Yeah, so yeah, kind of like that. So what you could do is, say for example, you onboard through whatever application, and instead of creating a key locally and telling you, okay, back up this thing, which people won't do or won't understand, or they will get wrecked most likely, is the application connects to an Insect Bunker instance from someone from whomever. It can be like your friend, or it can be an NSEC Bunker instance that client is running, and it creates the key there. The client never has the NSEC. It just says create this key and authorize me as client X to sign with that key, right? Because I'm creating it. So the NSEC Bunker just gives you back an NPAV for like the real identity of this new user, and the local application, the client that is doing the onboarding is able to sign for whatever. So the user never can tell that the client actually has a key that is authorized to do something else. But what's cool is that then the user, without copying anything, just, other than the NPAV, but the NPAV could also be an IPO5, so it could be literally like, guy at snort.social instead of an NPAV. You can go to another client and you can like log in with NSEC Bunker, but you never pasted an NSEC, right? Like you just need a passphrase so it could be like for the user, it could be an email and password sign up. It's just email and password are not really being used in the same typical way. Is the passphrase the encryption for the key, and the email is
Could you? Oh no, because you have to send that back. Damn. I was thinking, could you generate the key from the like locally with the client from a key generated on the server and the password, or like the local key or something like that? But it's still, you kind of run into the same problem, don't you?
Yeah. But what I think one of the really cool things that is true for both Bitcoin and Nostr is this magic moment of interoperability, right? When you restore a wallet in a different wallet, that's a pretty magical moment. And when you go from client A to client B in Nostr, that's a very magical moment. I think most people resonate with that because it's so weird. Like you don't go to your bank account and then log in a different bank and have the same money. That's not how it works, right? And
it informs so much about like our interaction with it, and to understand that this is fundamentally different.
Exactly.
Like this thing works differently. Like
it's a different
you don't have the same relationship with this thing. Yeah.
Exactly. So what that's one because I want to preserve these. If you onboard from a client and the client generates keys locally, which that's how it works. If you go to a different client, you need to do this hard step that normies are probably not able to do reliably, of copying the NSEC from client A to client B. So most likely, most people are going to miss this interoperability. Like they will have to work to get to this point where they experience this aha moment, right? Like this magical moment is behind work that they still don't understand why they should do this hard work. And this is one solution, one way of solving it, which I think it's kind of interesting. And like you can separate the moment of teaching key management from the moment of onboarding, because onboarding is already hard, and key management for people that have not interacted with Bitcoin is also really hard, right? It's very different. How do I change my password? How do I change my 12 words?
I lost them again. Oh God.
So I think this is an possibility that could be explored. I might explore it with Highlighter. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it, because the way I see it, Highlighter it appeals to people that might not be interested in social media. It's like a very different audience. It's like the people that use Readwise. It's not necessarily the same type of people that are on social media all day, right? So yeah, I'm still like wondering what's the right onboarding flow.
Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. No, that's going to be a major thing to overcome. Well, I mean, it is and it isn't. Like the flow will matter. Like it will be one of the biggest barriers. But I'm surprised by the number of people who have kind of taken it on. I'm generally impressed by the new people coming in, and I mean, like you said, people who be like, "What are these apps things?" And I'll just people who just don't know really anything about Bitcoin, and that is increasingly surprising to me.
But if you, I followed up like randomly with some people that I see that are clearly new, that clearly have not used Bitcoin before, and I follow up, and most of the time they're always using the same client. Like they have not experienced this. I went to this other client. It's very rare that they experience this interoperability, which I think is so special.
Yeah, it's funny because like Albi, like Insect Bunker is going to be like an awesome one when I figure out how to go to the GitHub and install this shit. But like the extension thing was kind of a game changer in how I used it. Like, in fact, when I tell people to go to Nostr now, at least like I'm talking to people who I know are on desktop, I just send them to the Albi extension. Like, I'd be like, do this and then go to a Nostr website, like just like go to one of the clients or whatever. But I and that's kind of one of the things too, is that I feel like the onboarding experience to Nostr needs to be about creating a key, not finding a client. Like the key, in fact, maybe the UI is giving all of the relay and client stuff as like okay, for an example, like the PWA, the side load or whatever it is, the app stores for just the PWA apps that are all like Nostr clients and stuff.
Yeah,
is that I feel like one major thing that could be interesting for that is that you generate the key in that app, or you generate the key in the thing that gives you your window into Nostr. So it's like the next step is like you just go, you make a key, this is who you are, and then you push it out to, oh, well, now I need to download a Damus client, or now I need to download Amethyst or something like that. Because that extension field or whatever, as long as like that's the process, step one, get your key signer. And then it leads you to the rest of Nostr.
And within one app, experience other apps. Yeah.
Those need to be together so that there's no confusion. It's like, okay, well, what's the next step? Like, because most of the time you go to Damus and you create a key, and then you're like, oh, well, you don't want to just be copying and pasting this all over the place. So now get an extension. And it's like, oh, what is? It's awkward. It's out of the flow, so to speak.
Yeah, totally. One other, and Will Shady55 mentioned that he might do this, which would be really cool. Is make Deimos itself a signer, like an Insect Bunker thing, like a signer itself.
That would be
That would be great, because you create your account on Deimos, and then you want to do something, and then Deimos already has your key, and Deimos says, yes, authorize. I mean, the only issue with that is it's just the same thing, the same issue as mobile Lightning wallets have with receiving payments, is that the app has to be online to sign.
Yeah.
That's the issue. Maybe probably not an issue for Android, because I think Android apps do wake up if you push to them.
Oh, that's interesting. I don't think I realized that.
I've heard that the signing, like the Lightning receive, is mainly iOS. I mean, the phone still has to have internet connection and be powered on and stuff like that, but the application itself can run, I think.
Okay. Oh my God, dude. Tell me about the status of your projects. When do I get to play with what? And
I mean, you should play with Insect Bunker right away.
Dude, Insect Bunker right now.
You have the job.
I can do that.
It's already supported on Coracle, Nostr Kiwi, Snort. There's a bunch more I'm forgetting.
Iris?
I don't think so. I haven't
Still, I keep
Cyrus
going
in
back to
a million
Iris.
years. Yeah, really?
I keep going back to
got-
Iris.
I got put off with like there were. It really censors the DMs, which I really dislike.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's the main client that people complain because I wrote like a chat widget that you can put on your website, and it allows people to create a new key within the site to send you like anonymous DMs. For some reason, I thought that was a good idea. And those DMs in Iris, they never show. They're never displayed because the NPub has no history or no profile or whatever.
Okay.
And then it does something with like that I really disliked. That if it cannot find an image, it changes the image to something else. And what was the other? Oh, the other one was that it replaces npubs that it cannot fetch a name for with something random that looks real. And that
Oh wait, really?
Yeah, that's
this.
yeah. Well, that's the thing. It's hard to notice, like unless you start paying attention.
Tricky.
Because it's tricky because they are all random names that look quite real.
That's pretty funny. I don't know if I had no idea about that. That's interesting about the DMs thing though. So what's your dominant client right now? What's your favorite?
Between Snort and Primal and Coracle, yeah, I'll say those three are about. I mean,
Are you desktop junkie?
desktop. I'm pretty much only use desktop for Nostr. I do use Demus and Primal on iPhone, and then I just bought an Android when the SAP thing happened. I bought an Android because I thought, okay, this is fucking bullshit. And I've been using Amethyst.
I just recently set it up too. I was just like, oh fuck, I'm gonna do this again.
Really, really good. And Graphene, like flashing Graphene, it took within less than 10 minutes from receiving the phone, I was running Graphene. It's incredibly easy. Yeah.
I actually ran into a problem with Calyx, and I was like, son of a bitch. But I was going to do Graphene as well anyway, at some point. And I think just because I ran into a roadblock, I'm sure I could get around it really quick. But yeah. I think I'm just going to be like, fuck it, go straight to Graphene. Because the Android phone is literally going to be like kind of a, largely probably be a travel phone, and then just nothing but Bitcoin stuff. Like it'll have, Fold, Green, Amethyst, like Bitcoin Nostr, Keat. Like it would just be like if I wanted to remake my entire platform totally decentralized, alternative protocol, like encrypted app, like that is just going to be that phone. So I'm kind of excited to see what kind of stack I can get, like what I can turn that phone into now. And
it's usually so boring.
I have to force my friends to adopt. Exactly. Oh shit.
Yeah, my Android is Amethyst, Mutiny, Zeus, and I think that's basically it.
I haven't played with Mutiny yet. I feel stupid for not having.
Really good. It's incredibly good. Yeah.
On mobile?
I cannot
on mobile.
Yeah. I cannot. It shocks me that that's a progressive web app. It really, really, really feels like a real app. I mean, it is a real app, but like
it feels like a real app. When you get something that's privacy centric and it's lightning and it's like self-hosted, you're like, this isn't gonna feel like a real app. But I'm gonna be impressed if it works at all. I only have to wait 20 seconds for like every step. That's no big deal. It's no big deal at all. And then you're like, oh my god, it works like a real app.
Oh shit!
10 stuff. Decentralized land is just a pain.
It's real. None of this is real. It's so fucking bullshit.
Shit. How about highlighter? Where are we?
So, dude, highlighter.
Give me the status.
The status is that I'm basically rethinking the whole flow. What I want. So my grand plan with highlighter.
I can't believe you got highlighter.com, by the way. How did that?
Someone gave that to me. It wasn't free. I mean, it wasn't. Okay. It wasn't like I paid for it.
I was like, how in the hell? Highlighter.com. You you just like post this. I was like, how did you even? I can't imagine. It's like
was like
No, actually,
$800,000.
So the person that had it had a company, and he's Nostr, and he had a company many years ago doing something like what Highlighter is doing, but just without the concept of decentralization and without the concept of like all these concepts. It was just like Readwise or something like that.
Yeah.
But like these guys
just had it the whole time.
He just had it because, I mean, you don't let go of the domain like that.
No, you don't let go of domain. A good one like that, you don't let go of highlighter.com. Fuck that.
When I created the repo, I called it Highlighter. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to name it. It's just whatever, Highlighter. Yeah. And then I named it Sapworthy. So because I got the domain sapworthy.com. And I was like, okay, well, this is, it's content that is worthy of a sap. Okay, Sapworthy. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
It's good enough.
That's funny.
And then I started talking to him, and he said, hey, I have the domain Highlighter. Would you like to use it? I was like, yeah.
Obviously.
It sounds good.
May work. I think I'll look up and see if the Google SEO is any good.
I'll think about it. No, but yeah, status. So my grand plan is, this is like an onboarding tool. This is the tool that I've been wanting to have for decades. Like I mentioned, I use Readwise and Workflowy and like all these things.
Oh yeah.
And Workflowy, I really liked actually. It's a cool idea. But it's a tool that. It's the tool that I would have wanted to be able to have for a long time. And it's a tool that will appeal to people that could not care less about Bitcoin, could not care less about social media and Twitter and decentralization and all this shit.
Yeah, that's the big thing.
To me, is something that, if executed right, which is a big if, can onboard a whole slew of new people that will at some point discover that they can do all this other shit with Nostr, and that it's all interconnected. So I'm rethinking everything very much from a newcomer UX perspective. So I've gone back and reread all the UX books that I've read like 15 years ago, and I'm just approaching it from that mindset of creating a narrative arc that resonates with people, because it's not about the technology, it's about what the technology allows you to do and allows you to be. I want to be able to bring all these aha moments and all these value points as close to the onboarding experience as possible. And just like the idea of connecting people to value just as soon as possible. So I have a UX redesign from on the which is what I'm working on every single day. One guy that redesigned just randomly, he sent me a new logo for Highlighter, and I loved it. So I stopped him like 1,000,000 sats when I saw that logo.
Is that the one that I'm looking at right now?
It's not on the main site. It's on, if you go to devhighlighter.com, that's the one. So devhighlighter.com. The code there is like 2 days old, so it's not very it's not
that's
the latest.
Nice.
It is nice.
Dude,
right?
I love it. Connect. I love it. I love Albie. Just like, God, I fucking love how these things work.
It's
so great. Like, it's totally seamless. Like, I don't have to, like, I fucking hate password managers. I hate password managers.
If they are that shit, man.
Yeah. Like, I'm done. Like, I didn't log into anything. I didn't have to do anything. I want this. This is why it's also perfect for mobile. This is also why it's like just like perfect for that like environment is. I don't know what the hell happened with LastPass. I've been like trying to migrate to what's the one? I have it on my embassy.
No, it's not
Bitwarden.
Bitwarden, yes.
Yeah, I've been trying to migrate, but like it's hard to get. I've got my family onto LastPass so that we could share and like distribute.
That's a nightmare.
Securely, whatever. But now, like, for some reason, like, I don't know what the hell's going on with the app, but I have to punch in like my master password like every time. Like, it's just, it won't keep a persistent state for some reason. And I'm just like, this is, not only does it defeat the whole purpose, but it's a security nightmare that I'm just having to constantly punch this thing in, you know?
But like I just do that. Like I'm logged into Iris. I just went to Snort while I was doing this. I went to Highlighter, and it was all automatically like just had my InPub. And then I go to the new Highlighter, and it just says, "Okay, yes." Like, do you want to allow this thing to be logged in? And it's like yes, and it's just done. Like I don't type anything in. I don't give it my user information. Like nothing. I just go from one to the other.
And the website doesn't like Highlighter, and it doesn't know anything about you. Like nothing.
Yeah. Just feed me the same thing. Like I'm sharing no information. You don't have to store a database of my user. Like it literally is identity separate from service. And this is like one of those things that we've been needing for the whole time the internet has existed. We've needed that desperately. And it's actually working. And, you know, one of the things that you actually point out, you said, like, you know, you have like that's a really cool logo. Really simple. I love the minimalist stuff.
I mean, me too.
Specifically. But I was just thinking like we could benefit really well. And this is something that I can maybe get April to do because she's so good at this stuff. Is have an open source like brand kit for Nostr, like set text, set like Nostrich or ostrich logo sort of thing, and then just like have it on like an available GitHub that anybody can just use this, and like this is the context, so you can have like a persistent login with Nostr everywhere, just like you have a login with Apple. It's like why don't we just find a good one to use and then just like distribute, just use this one, period. Like this one's just available because you know Bitcoin's got the Bitcoin symbol, the open source Bitcoin symbol.
We OpenSense gave a grant to Carnage to Nostr design. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
okay. They're ahead of game. Yeah. I came up with a great idea.
No, but the idea of branding it, because I like Twitter did that, Google did that, Microsoft did that. Like they all branded the login button. So maybe that's maybe that's something to consider. Yeah, for sure.
I really like the little like purple ostrich or whatever.
Yeah, it's cool.
It looks it's I don't know, it fits. I like it. But shit, dude.
For highlighter, dude, I'm gonna go without a feed. So it's not going to be like forever scroll, like infinite scroll. There is not going to be scrolling. It's like you get to the bottom of the page now, like do something different.
That's funny. Okay. So I'm gonna get to play with Highlighter very soon. And you're gonna kind of build this universal notes app. How do I get into all of the beta so that I get to play with these things before?
I'll send you a link to. So I was telling you that the guy that built that logo, he's super stoked on Highlighter, and he told me that this is like the main app that I want to use on Nostr, and I sent him an invite to a Figma that I was doing where I was brainstorming like design ideas, but I'm not a designer whatsoever. He said, "Oh, that's nice, that's cute," and he built his own Figma. He invited me to his Figma, and I quickly deleted mine. Started just building. started building what he's been designing. And so I'll send you a link to that Figma because I would very much like your input on that. But yeah, Dev Highlighter is where I'm deploying whenever it's not broken. What I have in localhost, I deploy it to Dev. So yeah, I'm going with this idea of how you create knowledge out of information. And I'm starting with like a discovery process where you find information that in some way is interesting to you for whatever reason. And there are like multiple approaches on how to get there. And then the next step would be to organize this information, which is basically like grouping different pieces, like these different bits of information in different ways. And then the third step is like a reflect, which at least that's how my brain works. Like I usually, after getting a bunch of things, I write about them, or maybe talking about them too, but mainly write about them and try to connect into a narrative arc a bunch of disparate ideas, like ideas that are its own thing, trying to tie them into something coherent, something new. So I'm going with this flow of discovery, then organizing in lists, and then creating basically like a note-taking app where it's deeply composable. So you can include, like you can literally tag at highlight whatever and at note whatever, and it could be a podcast, it could be a transcription, it could be a highlight, it could be a book, it could be anything, and the end state is this by default encrypted note that has everything that you've collected, right? Which is like sort of like a long form. It's just encrypted. It's just for you.
Yeah, dude. That's what's funny is there's this increasing problem that I'm seeing in controlling quality of data sets when it comes to AI. And the spirit of Satoshi that Alex Svetsky and their crew is building, they recently, I've gotten to see it. It's not like live or whatever yet, I don't think. But their repository, that they have a way for you to upload information for them so that like I could put in, like what I'm intending to do is like run transcriptions of my podcasts and then literally stick it into the thing as like a data set on like a particular topic and be like, this is something you can train the spirit of Satoshi on. Like I'm just offering up data. Is a highlighter, like that's actually one of the things that like my Obsidian notes are a collection of that, right? Like so many different thoughts on separate topics and trying to manage them with tags and backlinks. Is that if highlighter and some is basically integrated into this, is that I kind of have like really explicit context for all of the things that I'm doing, and I'm really segmenting down exactly the piece that is optimal or that's related to some specific thing or some specific question, and like talk about like if you get like wide use of that, like talk about an incredible source of high quality curation when like the value, like one of the most important jobs, like one of the most important things that a social graph will do in basically a world or where everything's an open protocol and you have infinite content because you have AI just generating everything infinitely, is curation and filtering. So if you can curate extremely high quality by just batching all of this stuff together, you can literally pay people for their highlights to train an AI based on it, and you get the highest quality information because it's every single thing that every single person thought this is worth saving. And you're immediately, when you're tied into this ecosystem and you can manage micro purchases and micro exchanges, you found yourself a data source. You found yourself an incredibly viable data source. It's just something that has to, again, positive feedback loop. Like the better it gets, the better it gets. The bigger it gets, the bigger it gets, you know.
100%. I actually on the explore, so I added like an explore section to the discovery part, and the idea, like the whole point of that thing is that you're going to be able to interact from there with data vending machines, and you're going to be able to give parameters to the data vending machines of what you're looking for, and within like in what way and in which way you want them to segment, because you can give them a bunch of inputs and parameters, and you could tell them, I'm interested in the thoughts of, because you can, within highlighter, you can create lists of people, and you could create a list of people that are interesting thought leaders for you with regards to topic A or topic B, like a topic AI, for example. And you could give that list as an input to the data vending machines of, pay special attention to what these people are reading, to what these people are speaking of, and give me interesting information based on this set of parameters. And I'm willing to pay 5,000 sats. And you'll get a list of data vending machines that are willing to provide you back the results. And they can, like, the idea is that the data vending machine, the service providers themselves, they will pitch to you as the customer why you should use them, right? Like I'm into this kind of thing. I'm interested in, like, I'm really good at finding this kind of thing, right? And okay, I'll pay for this one, and I'll buy 15,000 sats worth of results on what should I read next. What's cool is that the input could be, look at my last 100 highlights and look at my last 1,000 comments on those highlights, my last discussions on this information, and take that into account. Like, what should I read next, for example? That's the kind of thing that you will be able to ask these data vending machines, right?
That's so fascinating. Dude, this really is like Lightning, this increasingly, and I got into this with Cody really, really deep. And like Cody is really the one that kind of like, you have like multiple aha moments. Like there's like plateaus of like, oh shit, totally. Oh shit. You know, like, oh God, it is like one step further, you know? And like Cody was kind of like a second aha moment for me there in just kind of understanding. And the nuts thing is that it's so soon, is that like I imagine it is this like 10 years from now, we'll be able to do this. Like, but no, like all the, like, it's kind of already there. Like what you're building is essentially it. It's just that, again, it's just layers. And it's fascinating that like this will be something that in a completely novel sense, Lightning can do that nothing else even can.
Yep.
And it makes sense too that you would build the economy, you would build the ecosystem of Lightning from the bottom up of a novel use case for microtransactions that wasn't just some gimmicky thing, but that was legitimately like something that only Lightning could do. And really the first use case is like the first major use case of Lightning is Zaps. It's been Zaps.
Oh,
like,
yeah, totally.
Like, and I think it's the only people.
Look at the numbers. It's obvious.
Yeah. And it's going to be interesting to see what is essentially just a couple of pennies tip for fun, and to have people be like, "Oh my God, I made dollars on shit posting." You know, I made money just being a jackass on social. Somebody laughed at it or something, and to like kind of just like work your way up from there. Like it feels like you're watching, like I'm watching it emerge.
It looks like there is some kind of momentum that is accelerating, and I can feel it very, very often. And it feels like things are moving faster and faster and faster. And for me, for example, on Nostr development, it's been a few months since I've been able to keep up with the new stuff that comes out. I recorded with NBK and Millian and Antonio and Kieran, the Bitcoin review 2 days ago. Like half the list, I had no fucking idea that the things were, and I'm paying a lot of attention to the things that are happening in Nostr.
It's what you do all the time.
It's like what I fucking do all the time, and half the list is like, I have no idea what this fucking thing is. This sounds really cool. I had no idea this existed.
That's awesome, dude. The momentum.
Yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. Yeah, dude. Man. Like Cody launched from Fedi, so they had $6,000 to deploy, and they just put like a bunch of bounties on Replit for people to create data vending machines. So,
oh wow,
like, yeah, no, it's insane. So now people can go in and create like these weird long tail data vending machines and just get paid to learn how to do it.
That's so nuts, man. God, this is gonna be so crazy. I mean, recently, the scaling technology, like the degree of like scale shift that's happening, is so much like YouTube compared to mainstream media. It's so much like, I mean, just a great example or whatever is the ability to do small scripting that I just can't get over how. Like, I can't stop thinking about it because I'm using it all the freaking time. And I'm just like, I'm not a developer, but I'm able to. I built my own little transcription app through a handful of things using AI.
So cool.
and it's drag and drop, and I can do it over and over again. I've just done it for I did it after I did that. Just after I did that video, I sat down and I did one for creating like my projects. Is that like I have like a built-in naming convention now that it automatically creates all the requisite files that I need to start a project. It just gives me a list, like what kind of a project am I starting? I click on it, creates the folder, creates the either the DaVinci file, the DaVinci project, or the Logic project, like depending on what it is. Gives it the proper naming convention, creates my notes files in Obsidian for it with the exact same convention, and then creates my Linux folder for the archive so that I have an automatic place to drop it when I'm done with the project. And like I click, I give it a name, and then it's like, and it just opens everything for me. And it took me 30 minutes to put that together.
It's so wild. Yeah, think about the productivity gains. It's just it's just insanity. It's just absolute insanity, the productivity gains we're gonna get from these things.
And then having a protocol that enables an open marketplace. Like I could literally have like a marketplace for just like, can you build me an app that works on Linux? Like I can just take the hour with ChatGPT to try to help somebody sort this thing out, and then give them an app. Again, I'm not 100%. But
the weirdest thing happened a few days ago. Someone asked me to have support on Highlighter to be able to do like academic PDF annotation that supports LaTeX and like math notation, which I hadn't. And then someone created a data vending machine that does that, right? So now that that version of Highlighter has a new feature that I didn't write, but it just has it because it supports this thing. So the Highlighter just says, I want this thing converted to text in a way that I can understand it. And then without me writing a single line of code, Highlighter has a new functionality.
That's so cool.
It's so fucking wild, because now that means that the Highlighter has that functionality, but it also means that any Nostr application has that functionality. And any Nostr application that integrates with this thing will have any functionality that is implemented via data vending machines.
Dude, this is where we need
writing anything.
This is where we need a fork of Replit or whatever, like one of the specifically coding specific models, and we need to give it a heavyweight retraining with everything on GitHub Nostr.
Yeah,
like everything that's like Nostr related, because when you combine the power of just like very quickly coding something up with at simple stuff, you know, that doesn't need to be complex and doesn't need to be necessarily need to be elegant, you know, in order to work. It just does its job. And then you combine that with a protocol that's simple to build on top of, that has easy building blocks, and you can just have the LLM manage those building blocks and kind of understand when and where to use those things. You're talking about another order of you're putting another zero on the end of like your momentum, you know, like on the scope at which it can expand and be built on top of. And then at the exact same time, you have Greenlight and Breeze SDK and a bunch of these LSPs like L402 and like all of these things dropping at the exact same time. Like, man, dude, we're at 2.5 hours. Like I could probably still keep going, and I would just even fucking just talk about Highlighter for this long, because I'm so excited, feeling that like this problem is about to enter a new place of exploration rather than frustration. You know?
Yeah. I've been referring that on the page I had before on like this part of Highlighter. I had like, this is extremely experimental. It's probably going to be very different to anything that you're used to or something like that. And then I meant to make a bunch of videos showing how it works, but then I never made it. But like, that's one of the things. Dude,
That's what I'm
that would
doing
be
now.
super helpful. This is one of the things
Yeah,
that
I really would love to work together. That's something that I can do. I can provide
man,
help in that way. We need to stay in
helping
contact.
communicate these aspects. It's super. Like one of the things that I really want to do when the time is right, which probably will be in maybe like 6 weeks, a month, 2 months, is create, like, do a proper launch on Product Hunt. Because, like, there's a lot of people that have, like, these inklings of trying new things that are not Bitcoiners, they're not in Nostr, and launch in Hacker News, in Product Hunt, and like, indiehackers.com, and places like this that are full of people that are curious, but are not Bitcoiners, and they're not in Nostr. Let's just start getting the ball rolling, give them like a really precise purple pill. And I want to do like proper, like I've done launches on Product Hunt that have gone relatively well, like number one of the day and shit like that. And they get you a lot of users. Like with this thing, I'm not gonna know because now I don't have metrics of any kind. I don't have Google Analytics or obviously. I don't even look at my access log. So like for real.
Like that.
But yeah, I
So
want to
delete
do
those
like a proper video on with like for a real launch. Like that some people specialize in making launches and shit like that.
No, yeah, definitely. We should 100% stay in talk. Like we should talk about that and see if do we need to like seek someone out for this? Can I specifically work on it? How do we do tutorial videos? Because I really want to build like the body of work that I'm doing with video, and I've started with just the show, right? Is the foundation with Bitcoin Audible and AI Unchained, and the transcription thing was just my first. It's my first one, and it's got a lot of problems. There's a lot of things that I'm just kind of like I'm a real perfectionist when it comes to video shit, and I have so many little things that bother me. But that's why I've had such a hard time getting my video out, is because it's not done. It's never done, right?
That's the thing, man.
And so I need to get over that. I need to get over that shit. But I feel like I'm slowly beating through that barrier in my mind of just publish, move to the next, publish, move to the next.
If you're not ashamed by the time you launch, you launch too late.
There you go, dude. I think I'm out of time.
Yeah, I'm out of mental juice.
And mental juice. There we go. We'll have to store it up for next time. Man, we definitely need to stay in touch. But why don't you go ahead and just tell audience where do they find you? I'll have Impub and stuff in the description. So that'll be
just go to my Impub. My site is Pablof7z.com. It also it talks about hypercore, so I haven't updated that site for a while.
Nice. I need to get
Actually, at the very end of the website, it has the commands to run via hypercore to run my website locally. And it says,
shit.
Why would you want to do this? Well, it says something like, why would I do this? It's no reason.
Because you can.
It's cool. It's cool.
Yeah.
What kind of question is that?
That's awesome. All right, man. Well, let's close this one out. Again, thank you so much for chilling with me and going down this rabbit hole. And we will keep talking. I'll see you on the Nostrs.
For sure. See you on the relays, man. Thanks for
on the relays. What's up?
All right, guys. Thank you for listening. That was a absolutely fascinating conversation. Really had an absolute blast. Another thank you to Pablo for coming on and letting me unpack all of that stuff. And I'll be doing episodes on a lot of these tools, and maybe even some video work related to Bitcoin Audible rather than specifically AI Unchained. But if you haven't listened to it, by the way, you need to hit the most recent AI Unchained episode with Drew Bonsall. It is absolutely fascinating. It's absolutely fascinating. It's another long one. Both of my conversations very recently, with Pablo and Drew, man, they have just been rabbit holes. And there's so many things happening all at the exact same time. And I think these things compound on each other. I mean, there's a reason me and Pablo and I were talking about AI a lot in this episode. And I really think these things are very closely tied. And what we're going to see over the next 2 to 3 years could make a huge, huge difference in both ecosystems, basically providing feedback for the other. And the fact that we have Nostr, we have this open, decentralized social protocol and social graph to establish networks and identity is just, it's just really crazy. I mean, we covered it in the episode, so definitely check out. 100% be following Pablo and myself on Nostr. I will also have the pub key for the show. The show has its own account now. So don't forget to follow those so that you can stay up on things. And I'll try to give as many links as possible to Highlighter and stuff because there's some really exciting things coming out there. And I will catch you on the next one. Don't forget to check out our amazing sponsors, CoinKite and the Fold app and Fold card. It's the best way. Is the best way I know how to passively and always be stacking extra sats and then keeping it safe. Send it to your cold card. With that, thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next episode of Bitcoin Audible. Until then, everybody, take it easy, guys.
If you hire people just because they can do a job, they'll work for your money. But if you hire people who believe what you believe, they'll work for you with blood, sweat, and tears. Simon Sinek.